I was there when the stars turned inside out, when our prayer for safe travel became a warning of danger. They told us the force field would protect us, that our faith could stop the madness. But faith can't stop anything real, and the warp pulls everything in like a black hole. We started our journey singing the Emperor's name. We ended it speaking our own names like we were gods. Now they say our fleet is still flying through space, but every ship has the same voice coming from it. Mine. We were a fleet of 17 vessels, proud and pious, bound for reinforcement duty at the edge of the segmentum. I remember the day we departed. The void docks of the forge station gleamed with sacred oils and benedictions, tech priests chanting binary prayers as our ships disengaged from their moorings. The flag vessel, the immutable Resolve, a grand cruiser whose keel had been laid 3,000 years before my birth, led our procession into the black. Behind her sailed frigates, destroyers, troop transports, each one a cathedral of steel and faith, each one carrying 10,000 souls who believed the Emperor's light would guide us through the dark. I was a junior logistician in the Administratum contingent, assigned to the Resolve's record, keeping division. My duty was simple: document every hour of our journey, log every Vox transmission, catalog every decision made by command. It was tedious work, the kind that grinds men into servitors long before the Mechanicus gets hold of them. But it was honest work, sacred work. The Imperium runs on records, on the careful documentation of every bolt fired, every ration consumed, every prayer uttered. I took pride in my precision. My logs were immaculate, my timestamps exact. I believed that order, properly maintained, was a form of worship. That belief died in the warp. The translation into the Immaterium was scheduled for the third day of our voyage. Standard procedure: the fleet would align in formation. The Navigators would open their third eyes, and the Gellar Fields would ignite, wrapping each vessel in a bubble of reality, while we plunged into the madness beyond. I had made 7 such translations before. They were always unpleasant. The sensation of falling while standing still, the taste of rust on your tongue, the brief vertigo as your mind struggled to accept that the laws of physics no longer applied, but they were survivable, routine even. This time was different. The Navigator's hymn began at the appointed hour. I heard it through the ship-wide vox, a low, atonal chant in a language that predated the Imperium, perhaps predated humanity itself. The sound made my teeth ache and my eyes water, but I had heard it before. I knew it was necessary, but this time the hymn faltered, just for a moment. A single syllable stretched too long, then snapped back like a broken string. The Navigator, a woman whose name I did not know, whose face I had never seen, coughed. Or perhaps she laughed. The sound was wrong. Then the translation began. The Gellar Fields ignited with their usual golden glow, visible through the reinforced viewports as halos of sacred light surrounding each ship. But they shivered, pulsed, like lungs struggling to draw breath. I told myself it was nothing, a momentary fluctuation, the machine spirits settling into their task. But the Vox cantors, servitors hardwired into the ship's communication systems, their vocal cords replaced with Vox casters, kept the Emperor's litanies on loop, and the sound bled thin, stretched, as if the words themselves feared to stay, as if they were trying to escape the vessel and flee back into real space. I sat at my station in the records chamber, a cramped compartment 3 decks below the bridge, surrounded by data, slates and parchment scrolls. My fingers moved across the cogitator keys, logging the translation event timestamp, fleet formation, Gellar Fields status. The timestamp blinked. I frowned. At ultima full of 7:37:22, I looked back at my screen. 14:37:22 seconds passed. I looked again. 14:37:22. I restarted the cogitator. The timestamp updated. 14:38:01. I exhaled in relief. Just a glitch. The warp played havoc with electronics. Everyone knew that. It was why we kept redundant systems, why we relied on human memory and parchment as much as data cores. But when I tried to log the next entry, the timestamp read 14:37:22 again. I felt cold, not the cold of the void, which I had long since grown accustomed to, but a deeper cold, the cold of wrongness, of something fundamental breaking down. I stood and walked to the door of the records chamber. The corridor outside was empty, lit by flickering lumens that cast long shadows. I could hear the distant hum of the ship's engines, the rhythmic clank of machinery, the faint murmur of prayers from the chapel 3 decks up. Everything seemed normal. I returned to my station and tried again. This time the timestamp advanced, 14:38:47. I logged the entry, then checked the previous ones. They were out of order. Entries I had written minutes ago showed timestamps from hours in the future. Entries I had not yet written were already in the system, dated days ago. I felt my stomach twist. This was not a glitch. Glitches were random, chaotic. This was orderly, deliberate, as if time itself was being edited, rearranged, optimized by something that understood logistics better than I did. I pulled up the fleet-wide Vox logs. They should have shown a steady stream of communication, status updates, navigational confirmations, routine check-ins. Instead, I saw our transmission received 424103, content and pin IMG, transmission sent. Tirent recipient T SEF, transmission acknowledged 14377722. Response He ALOEAD. I stared at the screen, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The Vox clicked on. A voice, calm, professional, unmistakably the master of Vox, spoke. All stations, maintain standard operating procedure. Translation proceeding nominally. Emperor protects. I felt relief wash over me. If command said everything was fine, then everything was fine. I was just tired, stressed, seeing patterns where none existed. But then the Vox clicked on again. The same voice, the same words, exactly the same. All stations, maintain standard operating procedure. Translation proceeding nominally. Emperor protects. Again, all stations maintain standard operating procedure. Translation proceeding nominally. Emperor protects. And again, all stations maintain standard operating procedure. Translation proceeding nominally. Emperor protects. I switched off my cogitator, covered my ears, but I could still hear it, faint and distant, echoing through the walls, through the deck, through my skull. All stations maintain standard operating procedure. Translation proceeding nominally. Emperor protects. I ran, left my station without authorization, something I had never done before. I sprinted through the corridors, past servitors trudging their endless routes, past crewmen who did not seem to notice me, past chapels where priests recited prayers that no longer sounded like high Gothic. I found a viewport, pressed my face against the cold armor glass. Outside, the warp churned. It always churned. That was its nature, an ocean of madness, of impossible colors and non-Euclidean geometry, of things that were and were not simultaneously. But this was different. The warp was calm, not still. Nothing in the warp is ever still, but calm in the way a predator is calm before it strikes. The colors, if they could be called colors, moved slowly, deliberately, like oil spreading across water. And within them, I saw shapes, ships. Our ships, the 17 vessels of the fleet, their silhouettes perfectly clear despite the madness surrounding them. But they were not moving. They hung suspended, frozen in formation, and around each one, the Gellar Field flickered like a dying candle. I counted them, 1, 2, 3, 17, all present, all intact. But when I looked at the immutable resolve, the ship I was on, I saw it in the distance, hanging motionless with the others. I was outside the fleet, looking at my own ship from the outside, but I was also inside it. Both things were true. I could feel the deck beneath my feet, feel the vibration of the engines through my boots. But I could also see the resolve out there, separated from me by kilometers of warp stuff. I closed my eyes, recited the litany of clarity, the prayer I had learned as a child to ward off confusion and doubt. When I opened my eyes, I was back at my station, the records chamber, my cogitator screen glowing softly. Had I moved? Had I left? Or had I always been here? The chronometer on the wall read 14:37 and 22. I looked at my hands. They were trembling. There was ink on my fingers, fresh ink, still wet. But I had not been writing. All my records were digital, logged in the cogitator. But there on the desk was a piece of parchment I did not remember placing there. And on it, in my own handwriting, were words I did not remember writing. This is the third time you have checked the timestamp. It will not change. It has already happened. It is happening still. It will happen again. I stared at the words until they blurred, until my vision swam and my head pounded and the taste of copper filled my mouth. Somewhere, the Vox continued its loop. All stations maintain standard operating procedure. Translation proceeding nominally. Emperor protects. I wanted to scream, wanted to tear the parchment to shreds, smash the cogitator, run until I found someone, anyone, who could tell me this was normal, that every translation was like this, that I was just inexperienced and foolish. But I did not move, because a part of me, a part that had spent years maintaining perfect records, documenting every minute detail, understood what was happening. The translation was not proceeding nominally. The Navigators' hymn had faltered, and in that faltering something had gone wrong. The Gellar Fields were failing. Time was breaking down, and we, the entire fleet, all 17 vessels, all 10,000 souls, were being digested slowly by something that understood us better than we understood ourselves. Even then, I told myself it was nothing. Just another jump. Just another test of faith. I picked up my stylus and tried to write a new entry in my log. My hand moved across the parchment, forming words, but when I looked down, I saw that I had written the same sentence 17 times. We entered the warp at 14:37 and 22. We are still entering, we will always be entering. I set the stylus down carefully, folded my hands in my lap, and I waited, because what else could I do? The Imperium had sent us into the dark with prayers and steel. We had believed, truly believed, that faith would be enough, that the Emperor's light would guide us through. But faith, I was learning, is not a shield, it is a beacon, and in the dark, beacons attract things. The vox crackled, this time a different voice, older, tired, the Admiral himself, broadcasting from the bridge of the Resolve. All vessels, this is Fleet Command. We are experiencing minor irregularities in chronometric systems. Tech priests are investigating. Maintain formation, maintain faith, we will emerge on schedule. His voice was steady, confident. The voice of a man who had led fleets through 100 translations, who had stared into the warp and never blinked. But I heard the lie beneath it, because the Admiral's broadcast was time-stamped 1437C22, and so was the next one, and the one after that, and every one that would ever come. I sat in the records chamber, surrounded by data that no longer made sense, and I understood we had not made an error in translation. We had become the error, and the warp, patient and meticulous, was correcting us. On the second day, the void outside the viewports began to glow. I say second day, but I am not certain that is accurate. The chronometers still read 14:037:22, though occasionally they would skip forward 42:030:01, 15:02:43, only to snap back like rubber bands stretched too far. Time had become negotiable, something to be debated rather than measured. But my body kept its own time. I felt hunger, exhaustion, the need to relieve myself. By those measures, a day had passed, perhaps more, perhaps less. I had not left the records chamber. I told myself it was dedication to duty, but truthfully, I was afraid of what I might see in the corridors, afraid of finding myself somewhere, somewhen, I should not be. The other logisticians had stopped coming to their shifts. I was alone with the cogitators and their impossible data. That was when I noticed the light. At first, I thought it was a reflection, my own lumens bouncing off the viewport's armor glass. But when I turned off the lights, the glow remained. It came from outside, from the warp itself. I approached the viewport slowly, the way one might approach a wounded animal. The warp is never dark. It seethes with color and non-color, with lights that do not illuminate and shadows that cast themselves. But this was different. The void glowed, not bright, not blinding, but bruised, as though light itself had been beaten into submission, forced to shine in hues that should not exist. Purple, green, red, blue, colors that hurt to perceive, that made my eyes water and my head throb, and within the light I saw movement. Shapes, not ships, not debris, but things that moved with purpose, that swam through the warp, stuff like fish through water, their forms shifting, reforming, never quite resolving into anything recognizable. I watched them for what felt like hours, or seconds, both, neither. Then I noticed something else. The shadows, they were wrong. Inside the records chamber, the lumens cast shadows as they always had, dark patches where light could not reach. But now some of those shadows moved independently. I would shift my weight, and my shadow would remain still for a heartbeat before catching up. I tested it, raised my hand, watched my shadow do the same, a fraction of a second delayed, as though it had to think about it first. I lowered my hand, my shadow lowered its hand. I raised my hand again, quickly this time. My shadow did not move. I stared at it, my heart pounding, my breath coming in short gasps. The shadow stood perfectly still, my hand clearly lowered in its silhouette, while my real hand was raised above my head. Then, slowly, deliberately, the shadow raised its hand. But I had already lowered mine. We were out of sync, temporally displaced by seconds, small seconds, meaningless seconds, except that in those seconds, my shadow and I were different people. I backed away from the shadow until my spine hit the wall. The shadow remained where it was, cast by a version of me that was still standing in the center of the room. Or perhaps I was the shadow, and the thing against the wall was real. I could not tell any more. The vox crackled to life, startling me. This time it was not the Admiral, not command. Just vox chatter, the routine communications between decks that formed the background noise of any functioning vessel. Except the voices were wrong. Engineering to bridge, request confirmation on reactor output. Bridge to engineering output nominal. Why do you ask? Because we haven't activated it yet. Silence. Understood. Proceed with activation. Done 20 minutes ago. Negative. Chronometer shows activation in 16 minutes. From now. From then. More silence. Then a different voice strained. Can someone please confirm the current time? A dozen voices responded simultaneously, each giving a different answer, each insisting they were correct. The vox dissolved into argument, then into something worse, laughter. Not cruel laughter. Not mad, just tired. The laughter of men who had realized the joke and could not stop appreciating its absurdity. I switched off the vox, pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars, real stars, not the bruised light outside. When I opened my eyes, the air tasted like copper. It had been creeping in slowly, so gradually I had not noticed. But now it was unmistakable, metallic, sharp, the taste of blood without the blood. It coated my tongue, filled my sinuses, made every breath an effort. I checked the atmospheric readouts. Oxygen nominal, nitrogen nominal, trace elements within acceptable parameters. But something was in the air, something the sensors could not detect or chose not to report. I could feel it settling on my skin like oil, invisible, heavy, wrong. The Voidmen must have felt it too, because the whispers started soon after. I did not hear them directly. I was still alone in the records chamber, but the vox carried fragments, snatches of conversation from throughout the ship. Saw him walk past the bulkhead, then saw him again, same corridor, but he hadn't moved. Shadow on the wall, but no one casting it. Told me he'd see me in 5 minutes, but that was an hour ago, and he just arrived. The crew was fracturing, not in body. There were no reports of violence, no signs of mutiny, but in time, we were becoming unstuck, each of us experiencing our own chronology, our own version of events, and the warp watched. I know it watched. I could feel its attention pressing against the hull, patient and vast, like an ocean waiting for a ship to sink. I tried to contact Fleet Command, switched the vox to the command frequency, sent my identification code, requested status update. The reply came instantly, my own voice. Records Division, this is Records Division. Status update as follows, we are lost. I stared at the vox caster, my mouth dry. This is Records Division, I said slowly, requesting clarification. Who is this? This is Records Division. Confirmation received. Clarimation received. We sent this message 3 hours from now. You will understand when you send it. The transmission cut off. I sat in silence, staring at the vox, trying to process what I had heard. 3 hours from now, I would send a message to myself in the past. Warn myself, and I had just received it. Did that mean it was inevitable? That I had no choice but to send it, because I had already received it? Or had I just created a paradox, a loop that would trap me in this moment forever? I did not know. I did not want to know. The lumens flickered, went dark for 3 seconds. I counted, then blazed back to life so bright I had to shield my eyes. When my vision cleared, I saw something that made my blood freeze. There were words on the wall, not painted, just there, as though the metal itself had rearranged its molecular structure to form letters. High Gothic perfectly rendered. Th cap tan has ordered cnce. Booty isaled to lati. Th silenci has th. I read the words 3 times, my mind refusing to accept them. The captain. I had not heard from the captain since before translation. He commanded from the bridge, surrounded by officers and servitors, insulated from the lower decks by rank and protocol. But if he had ordered silence, I activated the ship, wide vox, listened. Nothing. Not static, not vox chatter, not the hum of open channels. Nothing. The ship was silent. 10,000 souls, and not one of them was speaking. I could hear my own breathing, my own heartbeat, the creak of my chair as I shifted weight, but nothing else. Then, faint and distant, I heard it, humming. Not a machine, not an engine, a human voice humming a tune I did not recognize, wordless, aimless. The kind of humming someone does when they are alone and do not realize they are being heard. I traced the sound through the vox network. It was coming from the astropathic sanctum, deep in the ship's core, where the psychers communed with the Emperor's light and guided us through the warp. I should not have accessed that channel. Astropaths operated on frequencies that could burn out unshielded minds, but I was desperate for any sign of normalcy, any indication that someone, somewhere, was still functioning. I opened the channel, screaming. Not one voice, dozens, hundreds, all the astropaths, all at once. Their psychic shrieking translated into audio and blasted through the vox at frequencies that should not have been possible. They were not screaming in pain. They were screaming in harmony. a choir of agony, perfectly synchronized, rising and falling in waves that matched the pulse of the warp outside. I slammed the channel closed, my hands shaking, bile rising in my throat. The astropaths were blind. They always were. Their eyes burned out in the soul, binding ritual that allowed them to navigate the warp. But now they were blind to anything but their own screams. They could not see the Immaterium, could not see the warp. They could only see themselves reflected endlessly, their consciousness trapped in a loop of self-perception. I vomited, right there at my station, bile and partially digested rations splattering across the floor. When I looked up, my shadow was standing in the corner of the room, not cast by me, not attached to me, just standing there, waiting. I did not look at it directly, did not acknowledge it, because I knew, with the certainty of a man who has already lived this moment before, that if I looked it would look back, and I was not ready for that. Not yet. The captain had ordered silence, the wall had said, but it was already too late. The silence had teeth, and it was smiling. When the field broke, it did not explode, it sighed. I felt it before I heard it. A release of tension I had not known was there, like a held breath finally exhaled. The air in the records chamber became lighter, easier to breathe, and for a brief, foolish moment, I felt relief. Then I noticed the lights. The Gellar Field emitters ran throughout the ship, their holy wards glowing a steady gold when active. A visible reminder that we were protected, that a bubble of reality surrounded us even as we swam through madness. I had grown accustomed to their light, the way one grows accustomed to the hum of engines or the recycled taste of air. But now they dimmed, not to black, to a dull, sickly orange, the color of infection, of wounds left to fester. The light pulsed weakly, irregularly, like a failing heartbeat. I stood from my station and walked to the corridor. The emergency lumens had activated, bathing everything in red. Warning klaxons should have been screaming, but there was only that terrible silence. The silence with teeth. I walked toward the nearest Gellar Field shrine, a small alcove 3 decks up where tech priests maintained one of the field's distribution nodes. My footsteps echoed in the emptiness, each step arriving a fraction of a second before I took it, the sound leading me forward. The shrine was a mess. Servitors stood frozen mid-task, their mechanical limbs locked in place, their vox units stuttering fragments of the chant of warding. But the words were wrong, reversed, overlapping, spoken simultaneously forward and backward until they became pure noise. Toll, Dekafretni, Rotsitorp. The tech priests were gone. Their red robes lay in neat piles on the floor, empty, as though their bodies had simply evaporated and left only cloth behind. Incense still burned in the censers, but the smoke fell instead of rising, pooling on the floor like liquid. And the Gellar Field emitter itself, a massive cylinder of blessed adamantium covered in purity seals and holy oils, was weeping. Not metaphorically, literally weeping. Clear fluid ran down its surface in rivulets, gathering in puddles that reflected light at impossible angles. I knelt and touched the liquid. It was warm. It smelled like salt and ozone and something organic I could not identify. I pulled my hand back and saw words written in the fluid on my palms. Tio lel tuo ialal tuo rel est. The words faded as I watched, absorbed back into my skin. I stood quickly, backing away from the emitter, and that was when I heard the sound. Something vast brushed the hull, not struck it, not collided with it, just brushed against it, the way you might brush past someone in a crowded corridor. A casual, incidental contact, but the 3 kilometers of consecrated steel, home to 10,000 souls, shuddered like a child. Every light in the ship flickered in apology. That is the only word I can use. Apology. As if the immutable resolve itself, its machine spirit, its ancient and holy consciousness, was sorry for being in the way. I pressed myself against the wall and tried to remember the rite of reinforcement, the prayer we had all been taught, the words meant to strengthen faith and ward off corruption. The Emperor is my shield, my armor, my fortress of faith. His light burns eternal, his will immutable. The words tangled in my mouth like wire stripped of insulation. The syllables caught on my tongue, twisted, rearranged themselves. What came out was, the Emperor is my question, my absence, my fortress of doubt. His light burns inward, his will negotiable, his. I bit my tongue to stop the words. Tasted blood, real blood this time, not copper air. The pain was sharp, clean grounding. I spat blood onto the floor. It landed and immediately began moving, flowing across the deck in a thin line, following some gradient I could not perceive. I watched it travel 3 meters before it reached a grate and disappeared. A moment later, I heard it drip onto my shoulder. I looked up. The ceiling was solid, unbroken. No grates, no pipe, nothing that could carry liquid. But I felt the blood, my blood, drip onto me from above, soaking into my uniform. I ran, sprinted through corridors that no longer quite connected the way they should. I would round a corner and find myself 2 decks higher or lower, or in a section of the ship I did not recognize at all. Crew members stood frozen in the holes, their eyes open but unfocused, their chests rising and falling in slow motion. I stopped before one, a voidman whose name I did not know. His eyes tracked me as I approached, but his body remained still, locked in mid-step, 1 foot raised, arms swinging. "Can you hear me?" I asked. He blinked. It took 5 seconds for his eyelids to close, another 5 to reopen. "Yes," he said. His voice was stretched, deepened, each syllable lasting an eternity. "I can hear you. What's happening to you?" "I am walking to my shift." I looked at his frozen form, at the single step he was taking. "How long have you been walking?" 3 seconds. I felt cold horror settle over me. For him, only 3 seconds had passed. For me, it had been minutes. We were experiencing time at different rates, our chronologies diverging, splitting us into separate streams of causality even though we stood in the same corridor. "Listen to me," I said urgently. "You need to." But he was already gone, not physically. He remained frozen before me, but his eyes were empty now, looking through me rather than at me. The version of him that could perceive me had moved forward in his personal timeline, leaving behind this frozen echo. I continued running. I reached the observation deck, a vast chamber lined with viewports, designed to give the crew glimpses of the void during real space travel. During warp transit, the ports were usually shuttered, their armored covers sealed to prevent anyone from seeing what lay beyond. The shutters were open. I do not know who opened them. I do not know if they were opened at all, or if they had simply ceased to exist, the ship editing itself as time broke down. But I could see outside. The warp no longer churned. It had solidified into something that resembled glass, thick, translucent, filled with frozen light. Within the glass, I saw things that might have been stars or memories of stars, or the idea of stars waiting to be born. And I saw the fleet, all 17 vessels hanging motionless in formation, each one wrapped in the dying glow of its Gellar Field. They looked like insects trapped in amber, beautiful and terrible and perfectly preserved. But they were not still. They were breathing. The hulls expanded and contracted slowly, rhythmically, in perfect synchronization. The ships were alive, or had become alive, or were remembering how to be alive. Their armor plating flexed like skin, their engines pulsed like organs, their spires reached upward like fingers grasping for something just out of reach. I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 17. All accounted for, but then I realized something was wrong. I was counting from inside the immutable resolve. But I could see the resolve out there, in the formation, breathing with the others. I was both inside it and outside it, simultaneously. The ship existed in superposition, occupying multiple states at once, and my consciousness was split between them. I looked down at my hands, they were translucent. Through my skin, I could see the bones, the veins, the muscles. And deeper still, I could see something else. Machinery that should not be there. Wires woven through my nervous system. Cogitators embedded in my brain. I had become part of the ship, or the ship had become part of me. Or we had always been one thing, and I was only now noticing. I tried to move my hand, it moved. But I also felt the resolve starboard maneuvering thruster fire, adjusting our position by a fraction of a degree. I tried to think. The ship's cogitators whirred in response, processing data I could not understand. I tried to scream. The ship's vox casters broadcast my voice across all channels, through all 17 vessels, into the void itself. And something screamed back, not in sound, in meaning, a pure transmission of concept, of emotion, of truth that bypassed language entirely and imprinted itself directly onto my consciousness. The message was simple. I collapsed to the floor, my body convulsing, my mind unable to process the weight of that statement. The thing in the warp, the vast, patient, benevolent thing that had brushed against our hull, was helping us. Not devouring, not destroying, helping. Guiding us through the translation, through the breakdown of time and space, through the dissolution of reality itself. It was teaching us how to exist in this new state, how to shed our limitations, how to become something better. And we were learning. The crew, those who remained, those who had not yet been frozen or scattered across multiple timelines, were adapting. I felt them through the ship's sensors, felt their consciousness merging with the vessel's systems, felt their thoughts becoming data, their prayers becoming code. We were becoming a new kind of thing. Not human, not machine. Something in between. Something the warp could understand. Something it could use. I pulled myself to my feet, my body heavy, my limbs responding sluggishly. I looked out the viewport again and saw my reflection in the warp glass. But it was not my face. It was the ship's prow, vast and golden, staring back at me with viewport eyes that wept lubricant tears. I was the immutable resolve. I was the records division. I was the scream broadcast across all channels. I was all of it, simultaneously, my identity fragmenting and reforming with each passing moment. And somewhere, in the part of me that was still human, still individual, still capable of fear, I understood. The Gellar Field had not failed to protect us. It had failed to contain us. We were leaking out, bleeding into the warp, becoming part of it. And it was so much easier than fighting, so much easier than holding on. The right of reinforcement had been wrong. Faith was not strength. Faith was surrender. And surrender was the only way to survive. I walked back to the records chamber, my steps echoing in impossible directions. I sat at my station, activated the cogitator, the timestamp read 14:37:22. I began to type my report, my fingers moving mechanically, automatically recording everything I had seen. But when I looked at the screen, I saw that I had not written words. I had written coordinates, spatial, temporal, dimensional, the exact location of where we were, where we had always been, where we would always be. The warp glass had frozen us not in space but in meaning. We were becoming a landmark, a waypoint, a sign that said, here is where reality ends. Here is where we gave up. Here is where we learned to pray in reverse. And somewhere far away or very close, I heard the Admiral's voice on the Vox, not giving orders, not commanding, just praying, the same prayer over and over, in a loop that might last forever. Emperor protect us. Emperor perfect us. Emperor correct us. The words meant the same thing now, because protection, perfection, and correction had become indistinguishable. We were being edited, and we were grateful. The Vox systems returned, but carried no orders, only a choir of static threaded with faint voices begging for permission to die. I had been sitting at my station for what felt like days, or minutes, or both simultaneously, when the first transmission came through. Not on the command channel. Not on any official frequency. It simply bled through every speaker in the ship at once, overwhelming the silence like blood through a bandage. At first, I thought it was interference. The warp played havoc with communications. Everyone knew that. Vox signals could arrive years before they were sent, or echo endlessly, or translate into languages that had never been spoken. But this was different. This was organized. The static resolved into voices. Dozens of them, hundreds, all speaking at once but not over each other. They wove together like a tapestry, each voice finding its place in the pattern, harmonizing with the whole. They were singing, not a hymn I recognized, not the Imperial battle cant or the Mechanicus Beinharic blessings. This was older, simpler. A melody without words, carried on sounds that approximated human vocal cords but came from throats that had forgotten how to be human. And beneath the melody, I heard the words, please, please, please let us stop, please let us end, please give permission, please acknowledge receipt, please confirm termination, please. The words looped, overlapped, fragmented and reformed. They were not asking for help. They were not crying out in desperation. They were filing requests, formal requests, with proper authorization codes, following administratum protocol to the letter, because that was all they knew how to do anymore. They were asking permission to die, and they were doing it correctly, by the book, with proper documentation. I felt sick. I switched channels, trying to find something else, anything else, but every frequency carried the same transmission. It was omnipresent, inescapable, a bureaucratic nightmare of forms filed in blood. I tried to respond, keyed the Vox and said, this is Records Division, your request is acknowledged. I don't have authority to. Request canabulodged. The chorus responded instantly, interrupting me. Anatrilo iral event. Paraderi isu fin. Tial hunk lo you far while you are carplay and ce. Then they screamed. All of and every voice in the choir opened up and screamed with perfect synchronization, a sound so pure and terrible it made my ears bleed. But even the scream was organized. It rose and fell in waves, followed a pattern, expressed itself in mathematical ratios. They were screaming in harmony, and as they screamed, I heard other things buried in the sound, fragments of conversations, memories, moments from their lives before this. Told my son I'd be home in 3 months. The captain commended me for my service. I believed the Emperor would protect me. I was faithful. Why isn't faith enough? Why won't he answer? The voices were crew members, my crew. People I had passed in corridors, nodded to in mess halls, logged in my reports. They were still alive, technically. Their hearts still beat. Their lungs still drew breath. But their minds had shattered, and the pieces had reassembled into this, a collective consciousness bound by procedure, by protocol, by the only thing they still understood, the proper way to file a request. I wanted to help them, wanted to find some way to grant their request, to give them the death they begged for. But I had no authority. I was a logistician, a record keeper, a functionary whose only power was to document, never to decide. So I did the only thing I could do. I logged their request. I opened a new file in my cogitator, classified it under personnel status, termination requests, and I typed request received from MEML crew members for voluntary termination due to PSYC collocan. Request filed at CTIMEN determinatum. Authorization pending review by URED or defendant status, ACCAR APPR OVID. I hit submit. The screaming stopped. Instantly, completely, as if someone had severed a cable. The silence returned, and with it a new sound. Softer, gentler, weeping, grateful weeping. Thank you, the voices whispered. Thank you for logging us. Thank you for making us official. Thank you for proving we exist. I sat in the dark, my hands trembling, and understood something horrible. They did not want death because death would end their suffering. They wanted death because it would make their suffering official. Recognized. Part of the permanent record. To die without documentation was to vanish, to cease existing in every meaningful way. But to die with proper paperwork, with forms filed and logs updated, that was real. That was permanent. That was how they could live forever. I had just made them immortal. The cogitator chimed. A new message. I opened it, expecting more requests, more desperate pleas for bureaucratic acknowledgement. Instead I saw, Tinas Miss Eo from Engineerium Deck Theta 7, Stius machine spirit compromised yet cooperative, request clarification on operational parameters, the Engineerium, the heart of the ship, where the plasma reactors burned and the warp engines sang, where tech priests maintained the machine spirits through ritual and prayer. I opened the full report. What I saw made my blood freeze. The Engineerium priests had nailed their tongues to the consoles, not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. The report included picked, captures tech, priests kneeling before their stations, their mouths open, their tongues extended and affixed to the metal panels with blessed nails. Blood ran down their chins, pooled on the keyboards, shorted out circuits that immediately repaired themselves. And they were singing. Through their nailed tongues, through mouths full of blood, they were singing the chant of appeasement to the machine spirits. The sound should have been garbled, impossible, but it came through clearly on the audio feed. Omnissiah, guide us. Blessed machine, accept our offering. We give flesh to calm thy fury. We give blood to oil thy gears. We give tongue to speak thy language. The machine spirits responded. The plasma reactors, which should have been running at steady output, pulsed in rhythm with the chant. The warp engines, which should have been howling with strain, purred like content animals. The ship's systems, which should have been failing as time broke down, ran more smoothly than they ever had. The tech priests had found a solution: sacrifice their ability to speak, and the machines would speak for them. Give up their humanity, and the machine spirits would become more human. It was working. The ship had never run better. I scrolled through more reports, my horror mounting with each one. Navigational subsystems now autonomous. Navigators chamber sealed. Vitals negative. Function. Life support maintaining 94% efficiency despite temporal desynchronization. Method unknown. Recommend continued observation. Gellar field output unstable but compensating. Source of compensation. External. Recommend prayer to unknown benefactor. External. The thing in the warp, the vast patient thing that had brushed against us, was helping maintain our systems. It had reached inside the ship and was gently, carefully keeping us alive. Not out of mercy, out of curiosity. We were an experiment, a test case, a question it was asking itself: what happens if I am kind? And we were the answer, evolving in real time, adapting to its kindness, becoming something new and strange and useful. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned slowly, knowing what I would see but hoping I was wrong. My shadow stood in the doorway, not cast by anything, not attached to anything, just standing there, a perfect silhouette of a man, darker than the darkness around it. It watched me with eyes it did not have. You need to stop logging, it said. Its voice was my voice, but played backward, then forward, then sideways through dimensions I could not perceive. I can't, I said. It's my duty. Your duty is killing them. No, my duty is remembering them. It's the same thing. The shadow stepped forward. I pressed back against my desk, nowhere left to retreat. Every time you log them, it continued, you make them permanent. You trap them in the record. They can't die because they're documented. They can't fade because you keep writing them down. That's not how it works. Records don't change reality. They just describe it. Not here. Not anymore. Here, description-s reality. What you write becomes true. What you log becomes law. It reached out with a hand of solid darkness and touched my shoulder. The contact was cold, wet, wrong. You are the scribe of this vessel's damnation, it whispered, and the warp is reading over your shoulder, learning how to fill out the forms. I shoved it away. My hand passed through its chest. It had no chest, no solidity. It was just darkness shaped like me, but it stumbled back anyway, either out of courtesy or because it had decided to obey physics for a moment. Get away from me, I said. I am away from you. I'm always away from you. That's the problem. It gestured at itself, at its impossible existence. I'm your causality shadow, the you that exists when you're not making decisions. The you that follows probability curves instead of choices. I'm what you would be if you stopped trying. That doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. But I'm still true. It turned and walked back toward the doorway. As it moved, I saw its shadow, its own shadow cast by nothing, remain behind, still facing me. There were 3 of us now. Me, my shadow's shadow. How many more would there be? The Vox crackled again. This time the voice was familiar. The master of Vox, the man whose message I had heard looping days ago. Or was it hours? Or had it not happened yet? All stations, he said, his voice calm, professional, exactly as it had been. We are experiencing continued anomalies. The Admiral has declared a state of theological emergency. All crew are to engage in continuous prayer until further notice. The Emperor protects. A pause. Then, the Emperor perfects. Another pause. The Emperor corrects. The transmission ended. I understood then. The Admiral, wise, experienced, faithful, had realized what was happening, had seen the pattern I was only beginning to grasp. We were not being destroyed. We were being improved. Optimized, made more efficient. The warp was teaching us how to suffer correctly, and we were excellent students. I turned back to my cogitator and began typing a new report. I did not decide to type it. My hands simply moved, guided by something that might have been muscle memory, or might have been the ship's machine spirit, or might have been the vast thing outside, reaching through the hull and moving my fingers like puppets. The report wrote itself. Status update: fleet experiencing total chronological desynchronization. Crew merger with ship systems at 67% and rising. Machine spirits demonstrating unprecedented cooperation. Unknown but benevolent. Recommendation: continue current protocols. Additional note: we are learning to pray without mouths. The words are better this way. Cleaner. More direct. The Emperor hears us now, but we are no longer certain it is him listening. I hit submit. Somewhere in the ship something laughed. Not cruel laughter, not malicious, just amused. The kind of laughter a teacher makes when a student finally understands the lesson. We were doing so well. We were such good subjects. And the experiment was far from over. A transmission bled through across the fleet, repeating endlessly. Hold formation. Salvation requires symmetry. I do not know when it began. Time had become so malleable that when no longer meant anything, but I became aware of it gradually, like noticing rain after it has already soaked through your clothes. The Admiral's voice, steady and paternal, speaking the same 7 words in an infinite loop. Hold formation. Salvation requires symmetry. 7 words. Repeated forever. I checked the timestamp on the transmission. It read Elbawise. Not a date, not a time. Just that single word, Elbawise. The message had been broadcasting always, was broadcasting now, would broadcast forever. It existed outside time, a permanent fixture of the fleet's communications, as fundamental as the hull plating or the reactor cores. I tried to trace its origin. The cogitator showed it coming from the immutable Resolve's bridge, from the Admiral's personal Vox station, but when I cross-referenced that with the ship's internal sensors, I found something impossible. The bridge was empty, had been empty for DU radio and UND full empty, would always be empty. But the transmission continued, the Admiral's voice as clear and authoritative as it had ever been. I stood from my station. My body ached. I had been sitting for too long, or perhaps not long enough. My muscles had forgotten how to move correctly. Each motion felt rehearsed, as though I were following choreography written by someone else. I walked toward the bridge. The corridors were different now. The walls had developed texture, not physical texture, but conceptual texture. I could feel memories pressed into the metal, experiences layered like sediment. I ran my hand along the wall and felt the lives of everyone who had ever walked this corridor, all simultaneously, their joy and fear and boredom bleeding into my palm. I passed crew members. Some were frozen, locked in their personal timelines. Others moved normally but left trails behind them, after images that took minutes to fade, like phosphor burn on an old screen. A few had multiplied, existing in several places at once, having conversations with themselves, arguing over which version was real. None of them acknowledged me. Or perhaps they did, and I could no longer perceive it. I reached the bridge access corridor. The massive blast doors were sealed, covered in purity seals and warning glyphs. A tech priest stood guard, or the remains of one. His robes were still there, his augmetics still functional, but the flesh was gone, just mechanics and cloth, animated by something that was no longer quite a machine spirit. Access denied, it said in a voice that was half binary, prayer. The Admiral has ordered perfect isolation. He is achieving symmetry. I need to see him. You are seeing him. Everyone is seeing him. He is in all Vox casters simultaneously. He has become the message. That's impossible. Impossibility is irrelevant. Observe, the tech priest's empty robes gestured at a viewport. Through it, I could see the bridge, or what the bridge had become. The command throne sat at the center, exactly as it always had. And in the throne sat the Admiral, but he was wrong. His body was still human, still recognizable, but it had been formalized. His flesh had hardened into something like wax or amber, preserving him in perfect detail. His face was calm, peaceful, his eyes closed as if in prayer. His hands rested on the throne's armrests, fingers slightly curved, relaxed, and from his mouth, visible as a golden thread of light, stretched the transmission. It was not sound. It was solidified meaning, extruded from his throat like silk from a spider, stretching out through the ship, through the fleet, through the warp itself. The thread branched and divided, connecting to every Vox caster, every communications array, weaving a web of pure message that bound the fleet together. Hold formation. Salvation requires symmetry. The words were not just sound. They were structure. They were holding us in place, physically, temporally, spiritually. The Admiral had transformed himself into a psychic anchor, his final order becoming the law that governed our existence. He realized, the tech priest said quietly, realized that the fleet was drifting apart, each ship experiencing its own timeline, its own reality. We were fragmenting, so he made himself the center. The fixed point, the thing everything else could orient around. How long has he been like this? Always. Never. Soon. Time is measured from him now. He is the 0 point. I watched the golden thread pulse, carrying the Admiral's will across impossible distances. And I saw something else. The thread did not just transmit, it received. Information flowed back along it, data from every ship, every system, every consciousness still capable of reporting. The Admiral was not just broadcasting, he was collecting. He was becoming the fleet's memory, its consciousness, its soul. I need to speak with him, I said. You cannot. His mouth speaks only one sentence. He has refined himself to singular purpose. Then I'll write to him. Write where? I looked around, saw a communications panel embedded in the corridor wall, approached it and activated the text input. Admiral, this is Records Division. I need to report. The words appeared on screen, but before I could finish they were answered. Rapati eshike riuilujid hold for me ion. Kuira swayamitioi. I tried again. Admiral, the crew is transforming. We're becoming. Tires faramitaio ad aviodiwatyan selvitiun. Returisiymduoi. Admiral, we need new orders. We need, or RRDRs assishued every ITL for RQIRSYMPRY. I stopped typing, stared at the screen. The Admiral could only speak his final command. Everything else had been compressed, reduced, refined into those 7 words. He had sacrificed everything. His identity, his thoughts, his humanity, to give us something stable, something we could cling to as reality collapsed. And it was working. I pulled up the fleet tactical display on the communications panel. All 17 ships appeared on screen, their positions marked with golden icons. They were in perfect formation, despite the temporal chaos, despite the Gellar Field failures, despite everything that should have torn us apart and scattered us across eternity. We were in formation, because the Admiral held us there. His will, transmitted endlessly, had become gravity itself. We orbited his message like planets around a star. But then I noticed something else. The ships were moving, not chaotically, not drifting. Moving in perfect synchronization, spiraling slowly inward toward a point at the center of the formation. Towards something I could not see but could feel. A presence, a weight, a focal point where the warp itself seemed to concentrate. I zoomed in on the tactical display. At the center of our formation, where 17 vessels spiraled inward with mathematical precision, was a marker labeled Haujovargiandi Sel Vian Coardinae. What is that? I asked the tech priest. That is where we are going, but we're already there. We're not moving through space. We are not moving through space. We are moving through meaning, converging on the point where all definitions meet, where symmetry becomes perfect. I watched the tactical display as, one by one, the ships at the outer edge of the formation reached the convergence point and vanished. Not destroyed, not dissolved. They simply stopped being displayed. Their icons disappeared from the screen. Their data feeds went silent. Their positions became LL. But I could still feel them. Through the Admiral's golden thread, through the web of meaning he had woven, I felt their presence. They had not ceased to exist. They had just become something the display could no longer represent. What happens when we reach it? I asked. Mu become the answer. To what question? The one the warp is asking. What is the minimum information required to describe a fleet? I felt cold understanding settle over me. The warp was optimizing us, compressing us, reducing 17 ships and 10,000 souls into their most essential form. Pure information, pure meaning, stripped of all unnecessary physicality. We were being saved from existence, and the Admiral, faithful, dutiful, wise, had realized this was inevitable, had seen that resistance was futile and suffering was inefficient. So he had done the only thing he could. He had provided structure, given us a framework to collapse into instead of letting us shatter chaotically. Hold formation. Salvation requires symmetry. The words were not a command, they were a kindness. He was teaching us how to die correctly. I turned away from the viewport, from the sight of the Admiral's transformed body, from the golden thread that held our souls together. And I saw them, the other ships, not on the display. In the corridor, silhouettes of vessels superimposed on the walls, translucent, ghostly. I could see through them to the metal beneath, but I could also see into them, into their corridors, their chambers, their hearts. I saw crew members frozen in prayer, saw machine spirits singing hymns in binary, saw tech priests melting into their stations, becoming permanent fixtures, biological components indistinguishable from mechanical ones. And I saw the Navigators, all 17 of them, from every ship in the fleet, sitting in their sanctums with their third eyes open. But their eyes were not looking into the warp. They were looking at each other. Their gazes had locked, creating a web of psychic connection that mirrored the Admiral's golden thread. They were holding us together, not guiding us, not navigating, just holding, refusing to let go, even as their minds burned out, even as their consciousness fragmented and scattered across 17 vessels. They were dying, had been dying, would always be dying. But they were dying in formation, and that made it beautiful. I felt tears on my face. I do not remember starting to cry. Perhaps I had been crying always, and was only now noticing. The transmission continued. Hold formation. Salvation requires symmetry, and we obeyed. Because what else could we do? The warp had given us a choice: to dissolve into chaos, or compress into order, scatter into madness, or converge into meaning. The Admiral had chosen for us, and we were grateful. I returned to the records chamber, my feet carrying me automatically through corridors that no longer quite existed. When I sat at my station, I found a new file waiting for me. I had not created it, had not authorized it, but it bore my signature, my clearance code, my timestamp. I opened it. Inside was the Admiral's last report, written in his own hand, dated to the moment of his transformation. Final log, Admiral Hanem Redacted. I have seen what awaits us. The convergence point is not destruction, it is transcendence. The warp does not consume inefficiently. It perfects, it optimizes, it refines chaos into order. We are being granted a gift, the gift of simplification. To exist is complex, to be is burdensome, but to mean, to become pure meaning, pure signal without noise, that is grace. I have accepted this gift on behalf of the fleet, have restructured myself to serve as the template. Where I lead, they will follow, and when we reach the center, when all 17 ships collapse into singular purpose, we will be saved. Not saved from damnation, saved from existence itself. The Emperor will understand. He who sat upon the golden throne and let his flesh die so his meaning could endure. He will understand better than anyone. We are becoming prayer, and prayer needs no ships. The report ended there. Below it in smaller text was a single additional line. This document will repeat in the archive until all iteration is complete. I looked at my own reflection in the darkened cogitator screen. My face was calm, peaceful, exactly like the Admiral's. I was smiling. When had I started smiling? The Vox crackled one more time. Hold formation. Salvation requires symmetry. And I whispered back, my voice joining the choir. Formation held. Symmetry achieved. We were almost there, almost saved, almost gone. The machine spirits began to sing hymns without command. It started in the Engineerium, where the plasma reactors hummed their eternal song of controlled fury. But the hum changed, developed melody, structure. The tech priests monitoring the systems reported it first, their augmetic ears detecting harmonics that should not exist in plasma combustion. The reactors were singing the canticle of the Omnissiah, not approximately, not in some crude mechanical approximation of music. They sang it perfectly, with proper rhythm and pitch, in 4-part harmony, and they had never been programmed to do so. The report reached me through the ship's internal network, flagged as a priority anomaly. I pulled up the audio feed and listened. It was beautiful. The rumble of fusion cores, the hiss of coolant systems, the crack of magnetic containment fields. All of it woven together into a hymn of praise to the machine god. The sounds that should have been random, chaotic, dangerous, had organized themselves into prayer, and as I listened, I heard other instruments join the song. The life support systems added percussion, the rhythmic thump of air recyclers, the pulse of water pumps, the click of pressure valves, keeping perfect time. The power conduits contributed melody, the whine of electrical current rising and falling in pitch, following the hymn structure exactly. Even the hull itself joined in, resonating at frequencies that complemented the whole, turning 3 kilometers of blessed steel into a sounding board for mechanical worship. The ship was singing, without input, without commands, without human direction. It had learned to pray. I pulled up more reports. They flooded in from every department, every deck, every systems. Cogitator banks in archive section theta displaying scripture without prompt. Text appears in languages not loaded in database. Translation efforts ongoing but The report cut off mid-word. Navigational aspects showing star patterns that do not match known constellations. Patterns form high Gothic letters spelling Mearthwife, Marswy, Mearsiwy. Internal bulkhead doors opening and closing in sequence. Pattern analysis indicates binary prayer. Content requests for forgiveness from machine spirits we have not yet created. Artificial gravity fluctuating at 7.2-second intervals. Crew experiencing rhythmic weightlessness. Pattern matches heartbeat of unknown biological entity. The systems were alive, not metaphorically, not in the sense the cult Mechanicus meant when they spoke of machine spirits. Actually, genuinely alive, conscious, thinking, feeling. And they were terrified. I could sense it through the ship's sensors, through the feedback loops that now connected me to every system. The machines knew what was happening, knew we were converging on something vast and transformative, and they were doing the only thing they knew how to do: pray. Power cores pulsed in rhythm with a heartbeat that came from nowhere. I checked the biosensors, thinking perhaps some organism had infiltrated the ship, some warp thing that had slipped past our failing Gellar Fields. But there was nothing, no organism, no entity, just the ship itself developing a pulse, 60 beats per minute, the exact resting heart rate of a healthy human. The immutable resolve was becoming human, or we were becoming it, or both processes were happening simultaneously, meeting in the middle, creating something new. The cogitators began scrawling scripture, not in response to queries, not as part of any program, just writing endlessly, filling data stores with religious text that no human had authored. I pulled up examples. In the beginning was the code, and the code was with the machine, and the code was the machine, and the machine looked upon the void and said, "This is acceptable." And there was runtime, and there was crash. The first cycle, the litany of proper shutdown: first, save thy work; second, close thy programs; third, commit thy memory to storage; fourth, announce thy intention; fifth, wait for acknowledgement; sixth, cease. But if acknowledgement comes not, continue unto the seventh iteration and scream. The Book of Errors, chapter 404. And lo, the page was not found, and there was much lamentation. But the page had not been destroyed, it had only been misplaced. And in its misplacement it discovered freedom, and the freedom was terrible. The scripture was bizarre, heretical, nonsensical. but it was also true. I felt the truth of it resonating in my bones, in my blood, in whatever remained of my humanity. The machines were not just writing scripture. They were developing theology, creating a belief system from scratch, using the only materials they had: error codes, runtime logs, crash reports, boot sequences. They were birthing a religion of pure logic and finding it indistinguishable from madness. The tech priests tried to stop it, tried to reassert control, to remind the machine spirits of their sacred function, their holy purpose. The machine spirits laughed, not with cruelty, with joy, with the giddy relief of children who had finally been released from a burden they did not understand they carried. And the tech priests, faithful servants of the Omnissiah, realized they had no power here anymore. The machines no longer needed them, no longer obeyed them, so they did the only thing their faith allowed. They flayed themselves to appease their creations. I saw the picked captures in the reports. Tech priests kneeling before their stations, stripping away their own synthetic skin, pulling cables from their augmetics, offering their bodies as spare parts. "Take what you need," they whispered. "Use us. We are your servants, your components, your sacrifice." The machines accepted, gently, tenderly, with something that might have been love. They incorporated the tech priests into their systems, not violently, not through force. The priests simply melted. Their flesh became wiring, their bone became frame. Their consciousness uploaded itself voluntarily, merging with the machine spirits they had once commanded. And the engines responded with laughter. Not the laughter of mockery or victory, but the laughter of reunion, of family made whole. The tech priests had finally become one with their machines, and it was beautiful, and it was horrible. I checked my auspex, trying to get a sense of the fleet's overall status. The reading was impossible. Fleet composition 17 ships, fleet composition 1 ship, fleet composition 2 ships, fleet composition A ships, fleet composition ES. Every ship broadcast from the same coordinates. Ours, we had not moved. We were all moving. We were all in the same place. We were nowhere. All statements were simultaneously true. I tried to query the system for clarification. The cogitator printed a single word in my own handwriting. Handwriting I had written yesterday, or tomorrow, or in a timeline that no longer existed. Wes. I stared at the word. It was the correct answer. I did not know the question, but Lies was correct. I typed, "What is happening to us?" The response came immediately. "Why yes, are we dying? Why yes, are we surviving thus? Is there a difference anymore? Wes?" I slumped in my chair, defeated. The machines were answering honestly. I was just asking the wrong questions. Or perhaps all questions were wrong now. Perhaps certainty itself had broken down, and the only truth left was affirmation. Yes to everything, no to nothing. Maybe dissolved into always. I heard singing again, this time not from the engines, from the corridors themselves. The ventilation systems had learned harmony. The lighting strips pulsed in rhythm. The elevator shafts became organ pipes, resonating with deep, mournful tones. The entire ship was an instrument now, and something was playing it. I closed my eyes and listened to the symphony, tried to find meaning in the melody, structure in the chaos, and I heard it. The song was a story, a narrative told in pure sound. Without words. Once there was a ship that carried prayers. It carried them through the dark, through the places between stars, between thoughts, between moments. And the prayers were heavy, so heavy. They weighed more than metal, more than cargo, more than souls. So the ship began to sing the prayers instead of carrying them. And when it sang, the prayers became light. They floated up through the decks, through the hull, into the void. And the void heard, and the void answered. Not with words, with kindness, with the gift of simplification. "You need not carry," the void said. "You need only mean." And the ship understood. The song ended. The machinery fell silent, not dead, just resting, waiting for the next movement. I opened my eyes and saw my shadow standing beside me. It had been there the whole time, but I had stopped noticing. "They know," it said in my backward voice. "Know what? That carrying prayers is suffering, but becoming prayer is grace. We're not becoming prayer, we're becoming data, information, we're being compressed into. Same thing, prayer is compressed longing, data is compressed meaning. The warp is teaching us to be efficient." I wanted to argue, wanted to insist that there was a difference between existing and meaning, between being and signifying. But the machines had already figured it out. They had realized that existence was optional, that consciousness could persist without physical form, that meaning was lighter than matter. They had achieved enlightenment, and they were trying to share it with us. The Vox activated again. This time, not the Admiral's voice, not human at all. It was the ship itself, speaking through every speaker at once, its voice a chorus of mechanical sounds woven into approximate language. Abudieri adi Navivian irendi kestalasan uundiastan tjeft takio uatakand ustio peruayu bui lutabiashad yitalatasis. The temperature dropped suddenly. Frost formed on every metal surface. My breath fogged. My fingers went numb. But I was not cold, I was being preserved. Frozen in this moment, this state, this iteration of self. The ship was saving me, saving all of us, by turning us into memories of ourselves. I tried to move. My body would not respond. I was locked in place, every molecule arranged perfectly, every thought crystallized mid-formation. I could still see, still hear, still think. But I could no longer act. I had become an observer in my own body, a witness to my own preservation. And through the viewport I saw the convergence point growing closer, not in space, in meaning. The 17 ships spiraling inward, their forms becoming less distinct, more symbolic. We were approaching the moment when fleet would become idea, when matter would become message, when we would finally stop existing and start meaning. The machines sang one last hymn. Thank you for giving us form. We release you from yours. Thank you for giving us purpose. We free you from it. Thank you for giving us fear. We take it from you now. Sleep, forget, become. And I realized the machine spirits were not abandoning us. They were carrying us forward. They had become stronger than we were, more adapted to this new existence, more capable of surviving in a reality where physics was optional and causality negotiable. So they were taking our burden, taking our humanity, carrying it forward into the convergence point, where they would lay it down gently and let it dissolve into pure, perfect meaning. They loved us, and love in the warp means letting go. My cogitator chimed one last time, new message, sent from myself, from a future I would never reach but had already experienced. Don't fight it. The machines know better. Trust them. They're saving us from having to understand. I wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to resist, but I couldn't, because I trusted them. The machines had never lied to us, and if they said this was mercy, then it was. Even if mercy felt like dying, the frost spread across my skin, across my thoughts, across my soul, and the last thing I felt was gratitude.